Counting it down. 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to the Arcadian podcast. Today is episode number 7, and it is Tuesday, February 26, 2019. I am Matt Franceschi, and with me today I have Adam Wolf, Ben Bachman, and Dave Mead. Today's main topic is going to be centered around the idea that as games continue to evolve patch after patch, and as players purchase games in an early access format, what is the significance of a release date? Or the actual title of the show, what even is a release date anymore? Trending news for the day, a lot of good news stories. So, the League of Legends team Vaevictus? We'll go with Vaevictus. We'll go Vaevictus, yeah. Vaevictus Esports from the Russian LCL was disbanded. And they replaced all of their players with 5 female players. And these players were all diamond players, and the majority of them main support. As you can probably guess, this didn't really go great for them, but we'll dive into that a little bit further later in the show. Microsoft is planning to release 2 new consoles at E3 this year. One is going to be primarily all digital, while the other one's going to be more traditional. It's going to read discs like the Xbox One did, and these are planned to be released in fall 2020. And we also have news that Reggie, the president of Nintendo of America, is stepping down, and taking his place will be none other than Doug Bowser. He's finally infiltrated straight to the top. It's taken him a long time, but he's finally succeeded. And then we're going to discuss some game releases and announcements. Anthem, which released on February 22nd, and we're going to talk a little bit more about Metro Exodus. But let's dive into the show. So let's start with the main topic and the question that I brought up before. As games continue to evolve patch after patch, and players purchase games in an early access format, what is the significance of a release date? Like, whenever you guys see the release date of a game, other than being able to purchase it at that point, which is a big deal, well, other than if there's early access, I mean, like, what does that really mean anymore? Does it really, like, matter? Because the game's going to change in a month anyway.
It seems like it doesn't nearly mean as much as it used to, obviously, for a number of reasons. I mean, the most recent example I can think of this is that new Total War game that we've been looking into a lot, the Three Kingdoms. I think that was actually supposed to release next month, and they just pushed it back to like May 23rd. And, in that specific example, and a lot of people were seeing it, gameplay reviews and stuff, the game didn't look complete. And I feel like that's kind of the story with a lot of games these days, but they don't do the right thing and kind of push back the game. They just rush it out anyways on that release date. And I'm not sure Total War, Creative Assembly, the company, and they did get a little pushback from that, not meeting their date. But I think in the long run, and I think all fans of these games can agree, and most games in general, that you'd rather see a complete game than see them meet that release date. That's just my opinion on it.
Yeah, I would have to agree.
I agree with that. Yep. I don't know. It's just like how like games have evolved over time. Like the release date, like isn't really it's not that big of a deal. I mean, it's still a big deal because like the game's coming out, but like you were saying, like the game is like games go through like iterations now. It's not like you just buy a game. Like things are always patched and updated and changing. So it's not really like it's never like like old games. Like if you would play like Zelda or whatever, like it would be the same. Like what I mean, the game's the same always. There's no patches. It was what it was. You know what I mean? But now like that's not really how things are anymore.
Yeah.
For most games, especially multiplayer games.
Yeah, the days are over of buying a physical. They've been over for a while. Buying a physical copy, and that was the complete game. We're never gonna see that again.
Right, and I mean
patched and
yeah, and like part of that is obviously like you like making money off DLC and whatever. You're not just buying one thing and getting it and being done. Now they want to sell you more things. So I think that's part of it too.
Yeah, it seems like maybe CD Projekt Red might be the last the last bastion of hope, like we said last week.
Yeah, is there any other developers that we can think of off the top of our heads that just
Larian Studios with Division the Original Sin 2,
oh yeah, there you go.
which we are Let's Playing right now. Check it out.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's just the natural evolution of things, spurred on by the incentive to make money. This the setup that they have now with the updates, the early releases, and all the content being added after the release date is the best way to make money now. Unfortunately for us, because I think we're all in agreement that we would like a complete game on release date, but I don't think we'll ever go back to that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like it always comes back to the point where like we always go back to like talking about like investors and making people like shareholders money, and like that's just kind of how, you know what I mean? It always like, doesn't it always kind of go back to that?
Yes.
And I think like this is another example where that's kind of what's going on here to some extent.
Yeah, they kind of left. I mean, so essentially, when you're like buying a game now, you kind of get like this fluid product that, is it ever really? Eventually it'll be complete, I guess, at some point. But the last game I just bought, Warhammer 2, I mean, that game released almost 2 years ago, I think now, and they're still making DLC, still adding content to it. Granted, you have to pay for that, but I mean, they keep making revisions, additions to it, and that's not like your standard. That you would typically see that in most other games, like your standard MMO RPG and things like that, where you're getting like the monthly subscription, where you're really just getting which is kind of a cool system, actually. Maybe they're a little overpriced for the DLCs, but if the quality of the content is good enough for you to pay that amount, I'm having less exceptions, I guess, reservations against companies that like to release this DLC like way after the fact and try to milk the money out of it.
Yeah.
Because in most cases, I mean, it really does make the game better, but I guess that kind of falls back to, what if they just released it at first, and you paid that $60 and you got everything and it was just done, right?
Yeah, I think that's a good point, is like games obviously shipped complete in the past. Like, the game was done, that is what it is. But now like are developers like intentionally like not making the game complete when they could have to sell DLC, or is it really like there's so much in games now that like they can't put it onto one game and they need DLC?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that one of the things I was thinking about was, I think this is happening all throughout in different realms of our daily life too. Everything we do is connected to a cloud now, and is updated, and there's our apps, the programs that we use for work, everything. So I mean, that's just being connected to something that can always be made better, I suppose.
Yeah, I agree with all of that, and I think, like, Adam, your point of a game like constantly updating and getting better over time is pretty perfect. But like, let's talk about like some instances where like maybe that doesn't happen. Like being a consumer in today's video game market, I think is really challenging, which is kind of like a crazy thing for me to say, because I feel like we have more choice than we've ever had. And we have some really great games to play. I mean, we've talked about lack of innovation, but I mean, at the end of the day, like, there is a lot of shit out there that we can really dive into and have a good time on. But like, let's say like you're playing Hearthstone, or any of these online games like Hearthstone or WoW or Fortnite or League of Legends or Overwatch, or I'm sure there's a million more that I could name. And say like when you first bought the game, or you first tried the game for free and you bought a bunch of skins and you tried to support the developer, and then a year later, they come out with all this like new stuff and completely change the meta on its head. And like maybe you don't like the game anymore. Like maybe it's a League of Legends meta that's really slow. And like maybe you don't want to play it that season because like, I don't know, like maybe one, like you're not good at it anymore. Or maybe two, like it's just not the same game that you wanted. Like, is there any recourse, like to say, or not any recourse, but like I feel like the product that you're purchasing, like we're not used to having this ever evolving digital product. So like, I think it's hard to be a consumer and buy a $60 game or a $30 game or whatever, think it is what it is at that time, and then have it transform into something entirely new later.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I feel that really relates to me right now. As far as especially like the multiplayer online games like League of Legends and World of Warcraft, where originally when those games first had come out years ago, loved both of them, played them all the time. Now today, I can't stand playing them for more than like 30 minutes, and I got to put it down. I don't want to look at it again for another week or two, which is kind of unfortunate. But I think just where we are as far as like our gaming careers, right? We were used to getting that $60 game or 50 or whatever it was, and having a complete game in our hands. And I feel like it's kind of hard to transition into this newer like fluid type of gaming when you, like you said, you invest so much money and time into something that's just not what it used to be. And maybe the companies do a little bit better from something like that. We always harp back onto that, what makes money, but maybe like this newer generation of gamer kind of likes this better than how it used to be, right?
Yeah. I think that's fair.
I think it's just changed, and you're well, if you were used to buying a copy of a game, so, I mean, that's where all your nostalgia comes from, is buying a copy of a game and running home and throwing it in the Xbox. I think that Warcraft is a pretty particular example, because it has such a long lifespan. And
Yeah.
same thing with League of Legends. But yeah, I agree. I'm in the same boat. I think that it's also since it is a product that is evolving, like it's okay. I think we kind of just have to accept that, like, there's people behind the scenes that are in charge of that of that evolution, and their ideas obviously weren't the same as our ideas for the game. So so it's kind of like one of those things where it's out of our hands, and we would have liked to seen it go a particular way, but it didn't. And now we have these games that we don't like to play because they're so different from.
Well, do you like buying DLC for games, or would you rather just have it all at one time? Or like, do you think current releases of games just like aren't good anymore?
Well, to that, go ahead.
I'm willing to buy DLC if I don't buy it right off the bat. I'm not that type of.
You're not a season passer.
No. I wait for reviews. I watch videos on it, and if it seems quality, then I think it's I think it's definitely worth it.
I like DLC if it seems like it's actually an addition to the original game. Like sometimes like you'll have DLC and it seems like it is like a separate story, like a side story that they added on later, which is like totally fine. But sometimes like, actually I'd say like pretty like a lot of the time now, it seems like developers just want to release DLC that like it seemed like it was part of the original game, or it was like an essential piece of the game, and then it comes out like 6 months later and you're like, why didn't I just get this at release? Like, what is this?
Exactly. I think companies that do it really good are like Bethesda with like Skyrim and Morrowind and Oblivion and stuff, like Fallout. They did a really good job. Like their DLCs, like they're deep. Like you want to buy them, you want to get them. That's like the only game I can think of. Like before we had like this online update patching, like where I went out to the store and like bought the revised like definitive edition of the game. Like that wasn't very popular back then, right? But then you look at a game like the most recent one I just got into, the Warhammer 2, where like I'm paying $20 to like unlock like part of a faction that's already in the game. You just can't play as them until you spend an additional $20, or you go back and spend an additional $60 on the first game that I didn't have, so I can play like 2 more factions, and that's it. It's just crazy.
Yeah, well, that
crazy,
Warhammer
crazy
2
stuff.
is like a crime.
It's such a good game though, man. Oh, I'm so hooked. They got me.
Yeah, you're
Yeah, I
done.
know,
Deep
man.
into
It
me.
is. I told you, dude. I told you. It's really good. It's
Ugh.
all really good content and shit.
It's
like-
unfortunate.
But I was gonna be critical of what Matt said. I was gonna say like, I don't know. There's some DLC where they added some shit that wasn't like derived from the. And now I'm thinking about it. It's like no, it does have to. The DLC to me, I agree with you. It has to be connected to the story, to the world. If they go too far out with it, it just seems like they're adding it to make more money. Like it's not the passion that's driving them, that's connected to the story and everything.
Oh, and I think it depends on the kind of game too, because like if it's a single player game, I agree more with that, what you guys are saying. But if it's a multiplayer game, it's a little bit different. You know what I mean? Because like for me, like multiplayer games, I'm not saying always, but the story isn't as important as like competitively playing against people, right?
Yep.
So I'm more okay with playing for DLC in a multiplayer game that gives me like new maps or whatever. Like I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I feel like the trap that multiplayer games get into is that they start to update just for the sake of updating and like keeping things fresh. Like, I think you can see this in WoW. I think you can see this in League. I mean, I think you can see like echoes of this everywhere throughout the competitive industry, but like they're literally just putting new things into the game just like to keep players excited, or like they think that they're keeping players excited and like spending money when actually all they're doing is like ruining their games with like, I think like content that people didn't ask for and didn't want in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I can't tell you how many examples of the scenario that you just laid out and of like how they've ruined the games. It's like it's almost better to find that timing, and we complain about this with developers all the time, to find that timing to just say, all right, let's let that be. It was a great game, and let's move on and create another awesome story, another world, whatever they're trying to do. It seems like developers have really bad timing with that. Like sometimes they just keep going forever.
Yes, another point I wanted to make here with just the difficulty of being a consumer right now in today's market is early access. And I think that this is the biggest culprit of like shady gaming developer and publisher like pricing and tactics. I like, how many times have we been burned on buying an early access game that we thought was going to be good for like $30, and then it doesn't come out for like 2 years after like the target date, or like it comes out and it is just a big pile of trash, or it just literally never gets finished. I feel like it's awful.
PUBG?
No, it's not even PUBG. I'm talking like Reign of Kings. I'm talking like some old school games like Reign of Kings.
Rust.
Oh yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've been told that Rust is finished and good now, and then I hop onto it for 15 minutes and have the worst time of my life.
What's the other one where we ran around in the woods from the zombie people?
The Forest.
With the forest.
Yeah, you named it.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's
Well, It sounds like you guys had some fun with that.
Well, they're all finished now, I think, but they don't look finished. That's unfortunate.
Yeah, I guess my overall point here, not like to pick on those games, is just like, you're having consumers buy these games that you're putting out like 2 years early, and like, like developers don't have like any reason to finish these games sometimes, and like I don't really see like a recourse for players to go back and say like, oh well, like we just spent like $30 on an unfinished product to like try to support you, and now like we have nothing to show for it except like this garbage game that we put 6 hours into.
Right? It's kind of like that. I don't know. Like, I guess the other side of it is like, did we have fun playing it? Did people enjoy it? And there are people that like really enjoy it, sink tons of hours in it. But I mean, they're just like, the majority of them of those type of games were just like really lazy sandbox games that you'd play with your friends or like other people. But like, granted, like if you could have fun playing just about anything, like if you were with your friends, like doing it, like you could put the 4 of us in a room with like a tin can and we'd find a way to keep ourselves entertained for a few hours. Like this isn't like a hard concept, but I mean it works. They got us to buy it, kept us interested enough, like just on the idea of like, oh, like a survival game, we're gonna be out there like doing this and that, and just never really had to like follow through on it to the level that they promised.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
think of what they could make, and then nothing ever comes,
Yeah.
nothing ever comes
Yeah.
out.
Like,
Right?
think what they could do with this, you
Yeah,
know.
exactly. Yeah, like a sale completely based on an empty promise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a lot of experience with early access and Rust. I put a lot of time. I mean, me, my brother, and Justin played the shit out of Rust when it was like just months old. You know, they call it vanilla Rust, and that game was fun because it was like the first of its kind with the survival, and there was just the spontaneous scenarios and like events that happened with just meeting random people and like just there's naked people running around. And,
I can see why you like it.
There's like this serfdom thing going on where like there's people who are really strong, and then there's just people who are trying to build up, and there's people who are like in the mid range where they're combining together to fight other people and stuff. So it was I really liked Rust, but am in agreement with you guys. After they started to like leave that like subject zero, after like trying to like expand on that, they totally like fucked it up. They made a bunch of promises. They wanted to add a bunch of cool shit, and when the quotation marks cool shit came into play, like it was all garbage.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, like I know that you like that game, and I'm sure there was a ton of other people that did too. I'm not like just trying to pick on Rust, but like like a game like No Man's Sky. I mean, like that came out, and like people were promised like all this multiplayer and like infinite worlds, and they got like 10 different worlds and like the goofiest looking aliens I've ever seen, and no multiplayer.
That game was hyped up too, like big time. I remember people like even like when it first came out on Twitch, like everybody played it, everybody was watching it being streamed. It was like the #1 viewed game, and then like within like a week, it was like gone.
Well, yeah, because they finally figured out that they never saw another player the whole week, like the whole entire population. So they figured something was probably up.
I don't even think it was a whole week. I feel like it was like 2 to 3 days until I started seeing videos on YouTube. Like, what is going on? Like, this is horseshit. I remember, like you had said, Dave. I remember there was an interview with one of the higher ups in the company that was developing it, and he was like acting like we were going to make it to Mars, like we were gonna like terraform Mars and like
Space Force.
Yeah, exactly. Like super serious about it and everything. And I remember I was like, this guy's serious. This might be huge. Like this might change things in the video game realm. And like it was total garbage. Like they gave a week and everyone like knew the jig's up.
And now like not like right now, but I remember like 6 months ago I was seeing like a lot of new YouTube videos like saying like, oh, No Man's Sky, like it's fixed now, like it's really fun, like you should come buy it. Like no, like I don't want to buy that. I don't think anybody does. Like fool me once, shame on me. But it's just I don't think anybody wanted to get back into that game at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Can we like think of a game that like came out that wasn't finished or is constantly evolving that is still actually a good game?
Like that is still improving.
Yeah, that we actually like, and like over the iterations, like we still enjoy playing.
Apex Legends is still good.
I mean,
2.5 weeks.
Yeah.
Oh,
that
man.
could change.
Might be a little fresh, bro.
That we still well, I mean,
I'm having
League
a lot of
Legends,
trouble, Dave.
League of Legends, I think, is just because we don't want to put the time. Not that we don't have the time to put into it to be as good as
you know what my example is. Actually, it's gonna break all your hearts because mine just shattered. Heroes of the Storm, I felt like was constantly getting better.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
and then they obliterated it.
Yeah, and then they just fucking launched it into space. Never you see from ever again.
They launched it up with Elon Musk's Tesla.
Yeah, I think I'm in agreement. Yeah, I think that was steadily getting better. Yeah.
I mean,
and there'd be times where like the meta kind of stunk, but like it would always evolve, and you would always come back, and it was fun for us.
Yeah.
And leagues like that to an extent too. There's definitely metas in League that are garbage and aren't fun, But like you always at some point come back to League, like a new season or a new patch or whatever. Like we always try it out. We always play it for a bit, and we like it.
Yeah.
And I would say the same thing for Hearthstone too. Like I always go through phases with that game. Like there'll be like like the new expansion comes out or whatever, and you're like, oh cool, and then you play it and it's fun, and then like it kind of dies off. But every time there's a new expansion, I kind of get back into it a little bit.
I think Hearthstone's the most polarizing game meta-wise. Like, yeah,
Ah.
I either play it every day for a month, or I can't even look in its direction. I have to like uninstall it. I can't like see the icon on my screen. I get like pissed.
They need to bring back more Jabberwocky whatever decks. That's exciting stuff.
Really like that.
Yeah, more of the walkies.
With me playing Magic, I mean, I don't play it extensively, but one of the things, and I know you guys probably feel the same way. One of the things with the card games is like when the new patches come out and on the new decks and everything, it kind of sucks, man. Like you're like, I spent all this time making this deck, and like, yeah, like they didn't totally phase it out, but it's definitely not the best anymore. Like and I gotta play so much in order to get all these other cards that I want and whatnot. It's kind of like a buzzkill with the card games. That makes sense, Matt. Maybe that's why you're like, it's all or nothing, because of that.
It's hard to keep up.
Exactly.
It's hard to keep up with one game, let alone like 4. Like like people like have normal lives that they have to deal with and like jobs.
Yeah.
It's hard to. I don't even know like what to build on my League champion. I don't even know what to build on Renekton from week to week, let alone like what the meta is in that game and who's strong, or like let alone like what's going on in Hearthstone too. And like there's even websites, like external websites, that try to help you with this stuff because they know it's impossible, and you still can't keep track of it.
Yeah, that's actually, I think that's a good point. Like, yeah, there's like, it's hard to keep up with everything, right? It really is.
No.
Yeah,
That's a lot.
in a constantly evolving world and game state. Yeah, it takes
Right.
it takes
Like-
constant attention.
Right. And like the way that I like to play games, like I want to be good
Yeah.
at them.
Exceptional.
And like I want to be better than the average player. So the time commitment to like stay up on all those games. And that's why like I usually find myself playing, a couple games. I don't, you know what I mean? I can't play like 10 games at one time because it's too hard to be good at all of them to the level that I want to be good at them and still be able to like maintain like a life and everything, if that makes sense.
Yep.
I feel like our group of friends, like we went through a real strange period of time where we were so scattered in the multiplayer games that we played that like we were like in bad moods all the time and like angry at each other because like we didn't want to play this or this person didn't want to play that. Like that's just it's so funny to me and kind of sad in a way that like these games are supposed to bring us together and find something that we all have in common and we really like, and like we have such great options now, or not great, we have such a variety of options now. It's kind of like torn us away from each other.
You're right. I remember. I mean, specific games like when certain people would like. I don't remember. I think it was Discord. Like would hop on Discord when we were playing a game. I just like log off. I just wouldn't even talk to them. I would not even play with them. It just wasn't happening because I knew it was just gonna be the worst time ever.
Yep.
Like people I knew for years and years, but like, nope, not playing League of Legends with you.
So I think another point to this, and I think that the consumers have a really rough time, and I think they have the roughest time in this. But I think being a reviewer of games and a critic of games is also like getting tougher and tougher by the day as well. And I think it's for the same reason. I mean, like you're trying to write your honest thoughts and opinions on a game when it comes out, and you do the best that you can, but then 3 months later, the game's not the same game. And like your score isn't the same score. And then you can have like some, idiot come into your comment section and say like, oh, well, like you didn't even write about this, and this. Like this game isn't even like the same game. You're like, well, hey, bud, I just wrote this 3 months ago. Like it doesn't even relate anymore. But like, my big question here is like, do games need to be reviewed like almost on a monthly basis? And if so, like, how would this even work? Like, would you just have to keep updating it and re-releasing your review every time you went to do it? And if not, like, a review is just becoming a thing of the past. Like, are user reviews on Steam like the only way that you know if a game's good anymore?
I think that, I mean, there is patch reviews and people do that. But I mean, it matters if you're talking about the game, whoever's reviewing the game, if they're honestly reviewing the game and they're not like they have an objective point of view, and they're not just like adding like bullshit that they like made up in their head. You know what I mean? Like, and that's what I get a lot from the game reviews nowadays.
Well, like to like kind of like not counterpoint, but to bring up a different argument to that, maybe like games always changing and evolving is actually really good for reviewers because now you have like a lot more content and you can stick on one thing for a lot longer
Yeah.
rather than just review it once and then be done. Now you have like you know, like people might like your review and they might keep coming back to see your opinions on things and how they update. So maybe it's really good for a reviewer too. In some cases, maybe not all.
I
Yeah,
think
good-
you're completely
point.
right.
Yeah.
There's I mean specific people. I follow a lot of them on YouTube. Actually, I didn't even think about this until you said it. Like they just play like
One
one
game.
game, and
Right.
then anytime like something new's coming out, like hundreds of thousands of views on their videos to like see like what they're doing, like what units are they using, what are they buying in game, like what are they doing now that things have changed, and there's like a big market for that. People want the information. It's fun, like for the game to change a little bit from time to time, right? Like, but I guess we kind of get back to that. Like, did it change too much? We just don't like it at all anymore, kind of thing.
Used to be so rigid because you just had the finished product and that was it, and people could get really um, into the minute details of the game and everything and the things that they loved about it. But now it's kind of just like there's always that pause where it's like, well, they might change this or this is going to change. You know what I mean? It's
That optimism.
yeah.
I feel like
People,
games.
yeah.
I feel like games follow like a similar life cycle. It seems like they come out, and like they're well accepted and they're good, and then like when the updates are coming out, like the developers are actually like fixing the game and they're actually improving upon the game like based on what users want. And it's like gets to a certain peak where it's the best that it ever is, and maybe this is like season 2, season 3 territory, and then after that I think you just like kind of see a decline. I mean, please feel free to like tell me I'm wrong here, which I very well could be, because that's a very, very broad statement I just made, but I think it's like fairly accurate.
You're totally wrong.
You think?
No, one game that I like to follow, it totally like defies all logic, and this is like a total outlier. I think in general you're completely right, but Age of Empires 2. Maybe you guys even remember that game? I think it's like it's not huge right now, but it's like totally got a huge resurgence. I mean, that game released in 1999.
Wow.
Like,
I knew
revitalized.
it was old.
Yeah.
They're holding tournaments now, and there's all kinds of streamers doing it on Twitch and stuff.
Was it when it was new? Was it?
It was a big game when it was new.
Yeah. I mean, just like the Final Fantasy 11 shit and other games where like they were so great that like the nostalgia drive is enough to pull those people back in and kind of just like spreads.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
mean,
think
there's
my blanket statement was more, I think, towards like modern games like post '96.
I'm sorry. I
No. It was a good point.
Say that there's some hope, right?
No, I got you.
For everybody, that like there's games that can kind of like transcend time, and even people that are much younger that probably some of them are playing it. I don't even think they were born when the game came out. Like can go back and play it and still appreciate it.
And that this is, I mean, I feel like we say this every single podcast, but it's genre. You know what I mean? It's based off the genre too as well. I agree with you with MOBAs. It seems. I think it's based off how much we like the game and if we're like playing it at the time. Like if we're not playing League at the time or we're playing it and we're getting negative feelings while playing it, like that season's gonna suck. Like obviously.
Yeah, I agree. And this is gonna all this conversation is kind of leading me into the last overall question I have here, and I think that this is the main question. And when I was writing this, I really struggled with answering this. So please, like, give me your thoughts, because this is like a genuine question that I don't know how to answer. When you're buying a video game in today's current climate, like whether it's early access or it's on release or it's after release, whatever, at any point that you're even if you're not buying it, even if you're just downloading it for free and maybe you get a skin here and there, what exactly are you buying? Are you buying the product as it exists on day one? Are you buying the product as it exists plus all changes that go into it later, even though you have no opinion or say in these changes for the product that you've bought? Are you just simply buying a chance and an opportunity to play and experience a developer's game? I mean, like, what do you get? Like, do you just get like a digital license to try to play the game? I mean, I'm genuinely curious.
That's kind of a scary way to phrase it, right? Because you're totally right. It's a hard. I don't know if I could actually answer that question. I mean, obviously, you're getting something, right? I mean, you get to play a game, but that game is just always going to be subject to change. Is that what we're just going to have to come to expect moving forward? That I don't know. Maybe we just start buying games based on the just like the who makes them, and not even so much like the genre of the game or anything, but like you really like the company, developer. I don't know.
For me, one thing that I would like to mention is, like, as time has evolved and like you kind of went from like single player games by yourself to like playing online with other people, and then like, unlocking achievements, unlocking gear, unlocking cosmetics, and all these things, right? It's like it's all intellectual property that you don't actually own and is not yours, even though you paid for it. And they can literally take it away from you at any time if you break a rule, or really not even, you don't even have to break a rule. They can just take it away from you. And I
Yeah.
think that is kind of a scary thing about buying games now and like investing time in it and unlocking all these things, that they can just be ripped away from you.
Yeah, and I think that that's a
Really
great
at
point.
Yeah, really at the discretion of the developer or whoever
Could you give me? I mean, I'm
running the
sorry.
game.
What are you getting at here? Are you talking about like breaking the rule? Like there's rules set in regards to like what chat? Are you talking about chat or?
Just in general, like, I mean, you could say something that like is what the like 90% of the population would say is not offensive, but like
Mhm.
in the game, like
Yeah.
someone can report you and then they can say it's offensive, and like if you do that, they have the power to just, you know,
Yeah.
remove you from the game and take all your stuff away that you worked hard for or paid for.
Yeah. Certainly.
And
Yeah.
not just chat or
But
cheating,
I
but
think
just like
I know
it's their
if you know what I
discretion.
mean. Like you can control that. That's in your control. You know what I mean? Like, and believe me, I would be one of the dudes who gets taken out of the fucking game. Some of the shit I say, but it's still in your control. So I
Right,
don't
but
think
should
that.
like sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never
Yeah,
hurt
right.
me. Maybe
I'm
like
with you.
some of
I
that
think you should be
stuff.
able to say whatever you want on video games. Like I'm with you on that, but I think like the point that we're at right now, unfortunately, is like it's here to stay. Like there's no way we're gonna revert back. And
Yeah, no, I get that. But I think there's been examples over time of things that people have gotten banned for that
oh
don't
yeah,
seem overly egregious, that like that's kind of scary that you can invest that much time or that much money into the game and unlocking things, and like they can be taken away from you at the discretion of the developer or whoever, and like it might not be really that fair to you.
yeah, yeah. Oh
Like to
yeah,
me,
but, you're talking about that. Those are particular cases, and I think those are. I think most of the time they're breaking the rules, the guidelines that are set that are like don't say anything that's racist or like or anything that's like yeah too
So
controversial. Don't say something super controversial. It's
I wanna ask, I wanna piggyback on this point, Dave. I think that's a great point. It's really scary, and I wanna lump this into another question. Is there like legally any like recourse or way that a player could demand a refund on a game, like the money they spent for a game, just based on the fact that, well, let's put in your example first, that like they literally had the game taken off of them. So like maybe you don't purchase a game anymore, maybe you're just like renting a chance to play it, which is really scary. And like, but say that doesn't even happen. Like, can you get a refund on a game? Like, even if you just purchased it years ago and like now, like it's just not the same game. Like, is there any protection for the consumer anymore?
No, it's all in the fine print, man.
That's
It's all
exactly.
Yeah.
purchases
Ben
are
says.
final, etc., etc., etc.
Terms and conditions and all that stuff. When you know what I mean, when you install or buy a game and you accept that, I think you're basically signing away any of your rights.
I
Yeah,
know Steam
it's really
can cover
scary.
your ass, but I don't think they're gonna cover you 2 years down the road after like X amount of updates or anything like that. There's no way.
Yeah, I guess 2 years was a long time, but I guess I'm just
Yeah,
like a
but sometime-
hypothetical. It just
sometime-
seems like there's no
Yeah.
there's no protection for anybody anymore. Like to like as we continue to move to a more digital world, and I'm gonna jump into this more like whenever we talk about that Xbox digital platform and hardware that I talked about, like in the intro. But like as every product that you own now is in a digital space, like I feel like nothing is ever yours. And like anything can just be stolen or taken from you at any point, and like there's just nothing that you can do about it.
Yeah, and like for me, like I don't know, it's just scary that like like all the time you invest in everything can just be like ripped away.
Yeah.
And not even that, just like even like when games just like die and shit, and like you have all these achievements and things, it feels really bad whenever the game's gone and like all that stuff doesn't matter anymore.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Which is kind of like, I mean, that's kind of getting off the topic a little bit, but just a personal feeling.
Real quick, one thing that I'll say is that this is new. You know, this digital age where everything's on a cloud, and like things take time to like bounce back and like give the individual its rights. Like it gets so big, and then at some point the pushback, not necessarily the pushback, but just it's like the how law works. Like that's how laws are made and everything. Like this is relatively new, so I think that would be something that would happen after.
That's true. The free market,
longer period.
the free
right.
market does go faster, and then they try to regulate it later. That's true.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Does anybody else have any more points they want to make on this? Before I get like super spooked, or are we just ready to move down into trending news?
No. What I wanted to say was like, yeah, I think basically we covered it all. It was just kind of scattered. But it's still it's new. This is something that's new to us, and I think that we'll get more. As time goes by, we will get a rigid idea of like what we are buying. Like right now, we're in kind of like limbo, like,
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I hope so.
I hope
hope so.
I hope you're right.
Because we're dealing with the introduction of Google and Amazon into these spheres, and like it's like okay, like sometimes they're so powerful that the individual does not get rights, and we're just kind of like fucked, so
yeah, it's just kind of hard to swallow, I feel like.
Oh yeah.
And it just seems to be keep getting worse. But anyway, all right, jumping down to trending. This first story, man, I love it. I feel like it's got just a little bit of everything. It's just like the perfect story to talk about. So, all right, I'll rephrase it again. I'll set it up again from the intro. So the League of Legends team Vaevictus Esports that plays in the Russian LCL. They were disbanded and they fired all of their original 5 players. And as a publicity stunt / test case, they filled the roster with an all-female team. And here's a direct quote from Vaevictus. It's time to experiment. We would like to check how competitive the women's team will be on the professional stage and how strong their progress will be. So like they're kind of saying like right there, like, they're not trying to win. Like they want to see like what's going to happen with this test case. So this is like the main piece of this story. These girls were all diamond level players, and the majority of them main support. So like when you compare these female players to like just the typical pros, I mean like they're way behind. They don't even have a full team. If like say 3 of them are normally on support, like they don't have like a full team of positions, which puts them at a huge disadvantage. And they're all diamond, which like is like a completely different world than like being in challenger or even master. So their first 3 games, they played RoX. They lost 12-1 in kills. Their second game, they lost to Vega Squadron 52-2. I heard that one was pretty close in the beginning, but it really got away from him. And then Dragon Army, the third game, they lost 20-1. Okay, so like taking all that in, like this is where it gets really, really interesting, because this is like where Riot Games kind of steps in here, and you see like a little bit of like trolling going on, like from teams, and like maybe not even trolling, but just like a little bit of like some playful stuff. So in the first game where they lost to RoX 12-1, RoX used all 5 of their bans in the draft on support champions. So they banned Nami, Janna, Lulu, Thresh, and then Braum. Which, like, it does kind of make sense, because like these girls like were playing a lot of supports. Mm-hmm. And after the first ban phase, they hadn't picked a support yet, so like, you know, they would ban out 2 more supports to like make it harder to get a competitive pick there. Just saying.
Right, and they could have picked a support before the second ban phase.
Yeah, I'm just getting it out. I'm just getting it out there. Yeah, right, exactly. If you watch the video on these 2 teams, I did look at it. It seemed like it was a really lighthearted and funny moment between the 2. Like the girls were laughing, the guys were laughing. Like everybody like seemed like they were having like a lot of fun with this. However, like I feel like many people and journalists like writing about this were saying that it was like kind of sexist, and that like this ban phase wouldn't have happened against an all-male team. So Riot Games went on to give RoX an official warning for the banning of the 5 supports, and if they did anything like that again, like there could be like real repercussions to the team. And then in their second game, when Vega Squadron beat them 52-2, Riot Games gave them an official warning, gave Vega Squadron this time an official warning for intentionally stretching the game out. So I'm just gonna say my overall point, and then I'm just gonna let you guys run wild with this. I've been talking enough on it. So Riot Games gave them, like this is supposed to be a competitive league, right? Like this is supposed to be like the most competitive esports league on the market. Like that's the brand that Riot has built. Mm-hmm. If they want it to stay that way, then they shouldn't give warnings out to teams for like, I mean, if they were trolling, whatever. If they're beating somebody 52-2, like that's too bad. Like then you need a better competitive landscape. Instead, like they need to be worried about the competitiveness of the teams and their overall product to the consumer. Like any team full of diamond players, male, female, whatever, aliens, I don't care who it is, they would have gotten crushed by everybody. And like I'm not even saying like that these diamond players are bad. Like I'm like silver 4. Like I stink. But I wouldn't be on the pro scene like getting embarrassed. But that's all I'm going to say. You guys go ahead with whatever you want to say. There's a lot of points.
I only have one thing that I want to say is like, how funny is it like biologically, like women are more keen on like nurturing and like being that support for I don't know, and then they all play support characters. I just like drew that up. You know what I mean? Like they all play support characters.
I play support. Are you saying I'm a woman?
Yeah, you're nurturing.
Yeah.
No, but isn't that funny though? Like
it is kind of funny.
If it was just 3 of them, I'd be like, I'd let it go. But like, I have to say something because it's every single one of them. It's
it's incredibly insensitive, but it's funny, man.
It's not insensitive. It's the truth.
We'll let it slide this time, man.
It's the truth. Well,
I think
a Polygon podcast right now.
Riot Games just messaged me. You've got an official warning. One more of those, you're out.
Dolly.
I wasn't sure at first, but the LCL, the league that they're in, I mean, this is the top league in Russia. So like I believe all regional leagues have like a challenger series where, you know, they can, you know, it's kind of like soccer in Europe where, you know, you can kind of like work your way up into that higher league or get relegated down to the lower league. But
yeah, it's like an open division.
Right. But how could they expect, you know, like you were saying, like anything else to happen? These people didn't earn their way into the league. They literally just picked them up and threw them on the team. Granted, I guess the team can do that if they really want to, but that Riot was going after other teams for bullying them, it just seems insane. It would have been fine if they just would have beat them, whatever, but I feel like it should have been the other way around, where Riot should have went to Vaevictus and been like, hey, like, get serious, or like, we're pulling your sponsorship. You're not allowed to buy back in.
Right.
Like, we're not having any of your logo sponsorship anywhere. Like, you're done for the season. Like, this is a joke. Like, why would you do this to the the league, I get like just trying to like generate interest, like earn some money. Like it's bad. It's bad sportsmanship, honestly, and I feel bad for the girls. You know, they kind of subjected them to this. You know, they didn't deserve it.
Yeah. Now what I was thinking of was now I can't remember it.
You're just thinking about those ladies.
Go ahead, Dave. Go ahead, Dave.
Like for me, like it's not about gender or anything. If you put people on a team that play at a level that isn't the highest level for that game, like what do you expect? Like what do you think's gonna happen? You know what I mean? Like what do you fucking think's gonna happen? If you put the people that aren't in the highest level against people that are,
Yeah.
they're gonna get shit on. Just like if we got together and went on an NFL field and played an NFL team, we would get shit on.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with gender. It has everything to do with like the skill to play the game.
Right.
What was supposed to happen here?
Yeah.
I don't know.
You can't blame the other pro teams for shitting on them.
It's publicity.
They're pro teams. They're here to win. Like you can't blame them for shitting on them.
Yeah,
that's
go ahead, Ben.
That's what I was gonna say, Dave. Was I was gonna make a comparison to pro sports, and I forgot I was gonna do that.
I feel,
you know what I mean? Like what? It's like there's an NBA game. It's a championship, game, and there's just something happened where all the starting 5 players, and they're like, oh, well, why don't we bring some girls in? Like, let's see how they do. Let's bring the professional, or not even professional. Let's bring some high school basketball, girls high school basketball players, and let's see how they do against them. Let's see how this goes.
It's
and
like perfect analogy.
Yep.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's like it's Riot's fault. You know what I mean? Like, why did they let this happen? It's silly. It's stupid. Here's the thing that I wanted to say, that Mark Cuban, who's supposed to be like the super intelligent entrepreneur, like he predicts things and in free markets and stuff. He says that esports is like the next great, it's going to take over regular sport eventually, or professional sports. He thinks that's going to happen eventually, and like they do something like this, it's like it makes you look silly, and like there has to be a standard that you have to live up to, and then you have to uphold, and they didn't do it here.
Yeah, I feel like Riot Games did a great job of addressing the secondary problem and not the primary problem, so great job, Riot. And I think that if this did anything, if this was supposed to be about gender empowerment or something, which I'm not even sure that it was, like I don't know what the heck this was from Vaevictus. Like I don't know what they thought was going to happen. But if anything, like all of this did was set back like females in esports even further. If it did anything to the gender gap in esports, or whatever you want to call it, or like gender representation in esports, all it did was have a negative effect. Like this wasn't good for those girls. This wasn't good for those girls. Like I'm sure they didn't feel great about losing 52-2. Like they didn't like go to bed happy that night, and like I don't think that like anybody's gonna be like trying something like this in the near future, just because it went so poorly.
Right, and like, well, they like we said before, like they didn't earn their way. It's not about gender; it's about if you're a good player, right?
Yes,
that's literally all it is.
Absolutely,
that's 100% what it is. And you don't just put people into a position to play at the highest level if they're not capable of it or haven't earned their way to be there. You play the best people regardless of skin color, gender, whatever. You don't just put people there to like be diverse. That makes no sense.
The thing that I don't understand about this is like, why didn't they just like make up like a mock match against, like why did they have to do it in a tournament? Like why didn't they just make up a mock match of like,
right, and like
throw it on Twitch and make money that way? Like all women diamond players, and let's have them fight against a.
Right, and like this team of girls, like they weren't doing the scrims, they weren't doing all the preparation that pro teams do. Like what did you expect to happen here? Like, what I mean?
Were they going to come in and like compete and perform? Like, is that? There's no way Vaevictus as an organization thought that was going to be the case. Like they knew they were setting them up.
Well, they are Russian
to fail. I mean, there was just
Yeah,
the
well,
motives
and
were
plus
completely wrong.
with all 5 of them running to the bottom lane in all 3 games, kind of put them into an experience deficit early on. But,
They did that?
no, they didn't. No.
Everybody wanted to play Lux.
But yeah. But next story. So Microsoft is planning to release 2 new consoles at E3 this year. And the release date for these is expected to be fall 2020. And these 2 consoles, one, like I mentioned before, is going to be primarily all digital. So it seems like, I mean, I don't know this for a fact, but it seems like it's like really not going to be able to read discs. So it's going to be all just online. And I heard that this one's going to be a little bit cheaper than the other version, which will be more like a traditional Xbox, and it's going to be able to read discs. And we, to be honest, like I kind of tired this out already. I kind of fucked us here just from off the get go, but like, and this was Dave's point to a T. Like, we don't have to rehash it again if you guys don't want to, but like, you know, a digital product like can be stolen from you so easily nowadays. And like sometimes even for speech, like sometimes like, I mean, like maybe like really didn't even do anything wrong. I don't know. It seems like Dave said, like it's like completely at the discretion of the company, and like you're even seeing this like in social media now with like Twitter bans and like YouTube comments getting banned, and like people on YouTube like now being able to lose their whole entire channel, like if the people in their comments like even say things the wrong way, which is like completely out of their control. Like it just seems to be like a worse and worse place to like create content or play games or buy anything digital.
Yeah, it's just so easy to like. It's so easy to like because you really like you don't actually own anything, so like it can always be stripped away from you, and that's like really scary. That you can commit to like a craft of doing something, and like like it doesn't have to be like a majority of people. If like one person doesn't like what you're doing, or gets offended, like they can literally have an impact on like ruining what you're doing and like making it not a thing anymore.
No.
And like I don't like that at all.
No, it's bad. And what's happening in the video game industry with this is just like a microcosm of what's happening. I mean, you can lose your job for saying the wrong thing, and it could be something like really silly and petty, and someone could take it the wrong way, and they could take it to the top, and the people are, in most cases, forced to fire you or reprimand you in some way. So it's like it's just sad that it's sunk into our something that we really are passionate about, and something that we spend a lot of time doing. And fortunately, I haven't seen anything in our group of friends that's been like totally taken away from. I've seen some bands, some funny bands, but that's like the extent of it. But you know, just one of those things where I hope that the truth and yeah.
Truth will.
Adam, do you have any
The
further?
truth will.
Do you have any further? Do you have any further points on this? I know we've like kind of beat this point to death, but I just didn't want to move on. If you were,
You know, it seemed like we talked a lot about the scare. You know, Dave kind of mentioned it. You know, maybe the company itself. You know, whoever's providing this game, this fluid object, this opportunity to play a game from them, are the ones that are maybe going to be the ones that take it away from you. I wouldn't be surprised maybe that we see like some kind of, you know, we see a lot of like hacking, security breaches and stuff like that. That maybe at some point, you know, when this really all goes south for everybody, it's like they bust into like the Steam or like Microsoft store and things like that and start messing with and delete everybody's purchases, that kind of thing. So like you can't verify who owned what at what time. You know, maybe that'll be the realization. We're like, well, you know, this is kind of hard to regulate and maintain.
Yes.
Like, what are we actually buying here?
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
And
that's a great point.
I feel like a lot of things too, like there's not like they can like ban you or remove your content or whatever, and like the appeals process always isn't like good or like existent. Like they can just be like, you know what I mean? They can just be like, fuck you, it's gone. Like we don't care what you think. Whatever, you could have legitimate appeal or a claim that would overturn what they're saying, overturn their decision. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like completely out of your control.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
And the reason why is because you know, something like you know, Wolf had a good example there. You know, something serious hasn't happened. There hasn't been serious repercussions. There hasn't been serious pushback from somebody on the other end of it going, oh, well, I'm going to screw you now, either by hacking or getting, doing something that's drastic. So once that does happen, probably multiple times, then we will see things put in place in order to help us as the gamers.
Well,
I think.
Let's get hacking, boys.
Find the truth.
Okay, so this third story, I'm gonna try to wade through this. If I start not making sense, I don't know. Just get me in the right direction here. But this is it's the craziest damn story. And this is a follow-up to a story that we had like back in week 2, week 3, maybe week 3. I can't remember. If you want to hear more about the original story, I think it's in podcast episode 3. But anyway, so this is the update on the Assassin's Creed DLC story, where some of the LGBTQ community players were complaining that in the new DLC, the player was forced into a heterosexual relationship to have a biological child, which was already, I think, like a little bit crazy enough. So the developers updated this content in game originally to make the birth of the child solely for the reason of passing on a bloodline, with no romance involved. And everybody seemed to be happy with that, and it was like fixed. And, everybody was at peace for that day. But now, so they have another controversy over this, and I think it's even more ridiculous than the first one, if that's even possible. So now when the baby used to be born, the player would receive an in-game achievement, and this was called Growing Up. Like that was the title of the achievement that you would get like upon like beating this DLC or getting to this point in the DLC. So apparently like the title of this was offensive, as like people were saying that it assumed that being homosexual or not wanting children was just a phase that someone could grow out of. And here's a quote like from the game's creative director Jonathan Dumont. So he said that growing up was a phrase that was not intended to deliver a hurtful or dismissive message. It was definitely not written with that intention. This was an oversight in the review process, and we very regrettably missed it. He also added that the developers share the frustration of players who find this offensive. And just a heads up, they also changed this title now to read The Blood of Leonidas, I guess like for the passing of the bloodline versus like this growing up thing. Oh, and just one last note on it. This is only patched on the PS4 right now, so if you still want to get like your last ounce of being offended by every single thing on the planet, just hop on Xbox One or PC over the next couple of days, and you can still get your daily dose. Nice. But like, I guess like, I know it's ridiculous. Like, please say whatever you want. Like, it's unbelievable that this stuff is like still going on. But like, when I was reading this quote from this guy Jonathan Dumont, and I'm not going to speak for him, but like, how like pissed do you think he was just like having to write this like stupid message about this thing that just does not matter? It's the title of an achievement. It's obviously about the baby growing up.
What the fuck planet do we live on? What the fuck happened?
People that have way too much time.
Maybe.
I mean, I'm gonna be short and sweet. I don't want to like beat this to death because I think it's fucking ridiculous, and talking about it's just gonna like, I don't know, make me more angry. But for me, it comes back to the goddamn thing. There's like a very small subsection of people that are in a very, very, very small minority that get offended by things, and then the developers cater to the small minority and fucking ruin everything and make it weird for everybody else, when they should just shut the fuck up and let it be how it is, because it's not that big of a fucking deal.
Yeah.
Stop catering to a tiny, tiny minority of players and just let the game be how it was supposed to be.
Yes. Well, honestly, the way it wasn't intentionally, just speaking on the DLC or whatever, that there was this relationship between two people and they have a child, and that wasn't cool. But now they're having this relationship that's solely on passing a bloodline, no romance. That's kind of like, not to be like a big baby and get offended, but like,
yeah, why don't you grow up?
Well, that's kind of offensive. It's kind of uncomfortable to me. Like, it's not something like I strictly like condone, like that kind of. I don't know. I don't want to bring my personal beliefs into it, but like, you can't please everybody, and sometimes like people say like really, not saying like the LGBTQ people that they say stupid stuff, but people say like dumb things, and sometimes they just need to be told like, This
like,
isn't
no,
it.
like you're in the
fight a
wrong. Yeah,
different
you're in the
battle, like,
wrong here. Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah.
The appropriate way to deal with this is, first of all, it's 4.5% of people in the United States that identify as LB. What is it? LGBTQ. Okay, 4.5%.
It's basically just a really
So
strong
what-
password.
It's insane. And so the appropriate way to deal with this in this outrage culture that we have right now, the appropriate way to deal with this, and I would recommend. I know there's a lot of developers who are listening to this, so
Yeah.
people who are involved with development of games and stuff. So they need to be listening to this. Don't do anything. Do not do anything. Don't react to it. Don't apologize. Don't be an asshole and say it's our game. We'll do what we want. Don't do anything. Guess what happens? Guess what happens after 2 weeks when they don't get any feedback, when they don't get anything from you? They'll leave you alone. They'll be gone. They've moved on to someone else to fuck with.
Yeah, I
That's
agree.
how you
I agree
do
with
it.
that, Ben.
You totally see you later. Like, we have no comment.
Yeah, I mean we've said this all before. I just wanted to bring it up again just because like this was in addition to what we already had talked about, and like it just seems to keep getting wilder and wilder.
Yeah.
And we brought up all the points over and over and over again, and I mean we're gonna continue to, like, we can just keep saying the same thing over and over again. But like, this is Ubisoft's game. Like they made this game the way they wanted to. Like, they're not like catering to straight people by making it a biologically like romantic relationship. Like, that's just the way that they wrote the story, and that's the way they wanted to portray it. Like, just leave it be. And like, if people want to have like different stuff in other games, then I mean, make your own games then, and write your own stories, and then people can follow that. But like, don't get on everybody else's stories. Like, and quit trying to change like and put your own things into them. Just make your own content though. Then, if you're so worried about it.
Right. Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, lighter topic. Nothing really to say here. I just think it's really, really funny. I wish I would have like written up some jokes for this or something, but I didn't. But this is it. I just one sentence. Reggie is stepping down as the Nintendo of America president. Taking his place is Doug Bowser. Obviously it's the best. Do you guys have anything to say on it?
I heard, that how they get they bring the Axeman in. I heard he's the Hammer Man.
Wait, what?
Nice.
Wait, what?
Nice, Ben.
Bowser's weapon's a hammer. He throws hammers and shit.
Got him.
Yep, I'll be here all weekend.
we got him.
Or it's not the weekend. I'll be here tonight.
That was pretty good.
I would ask if anybody has any better jokes to go, but I think we already hit the top, so I don't.
I'm waiting for Video Game Donkey's opinion on this one. He's always got a good.
He
Reggie
likes
pick.
Reggie. He does like Reggie.
Yeah.
I mean, I liked Reggie too. He was pretty funny.
Mm-hmm. Good guy. Right?
Seemed like a guy that
Maybe.
really got it. Yeah. But all right, let's move down to game releases and announcements. So, just Anthem and Metro Exodus today. Anthem released on February 22nd. So, it currently sits at a 60% from reviewers and critics and a 4.4 out of 10 from users. These are both extremely low scores. I haven't seen a game like this low in a long time. Like a long time, especially like from a big time developer and publisher. I haven't heard a single good thing about this game from anybody. I haven't heard like one person say one good thing about this game on one aspect of it. The only thing that I've seen people say is that it has the potential chance to be good down the road. But nobody's going to want to play it like after that if it's going to be a forgotten game.
I mean, if those are the numbers that you're seeing online, how bad is it really? It's got to be
Horrible.
Yeah, that's a great
It's
point.
got to be like cataclysmic levels. I don't even think that Mass Effect Andromeda got ratings that low, and like the people were like, you couldn't even like, I couldn't watch like 5 seconds of those clips of the people talking on the screen. It just looked so ridiculous. I can't imagine how badly they must have got this wrong. It's just like a shooter, isn't it?
It looks like it's a little bit of like a Destiny thing, but I haven't like gotten the entire gist. I mean, I'm just completely uninterested. I can't even bother to like look at the game or like watch a review because I like just genuinely don't care.
I knew more about this one. I'm sorry that I don't have much input on it. It's
no
similar
worries.
to like Fallout 76. It seems like the
It seems like it was rushed out, and
yeah.
they're gonna be paying for it. It's just they already are, but
Yeah, I don't know if it's even so much that is that I feel like this was kind of coming down the pike here. The release date for this game, everybody had been talking about it, like how poorly timed the release of this with like Apex Legends and there was one other game that released right around Christmas. It was or maybe Battlefield as well. All these games that are generally similar, all releasing at the same time. I think this one was just set up to fail. Like even if it was a moderately good game, I bet that you probably would have saw a lot of backlash. Anyways, I don't think anybody wanted to like this game. It was just the vibe I was getting.
It's like becoming, or it like has become like the whipping boy for the community. It seems like to just point out like everything bad about the industry and EA like all in one. Like everybody's just ripping this thing to shreds from all angles. Like it's got no chance of recovery.
No,
I'm that's what needs to happen when expectations are not met, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
It's sad. This is BioWare too.
Yeah, I know.
Baldur's
I know.
Gate,
It's
favorite games.
Well, you
great
almost
studio.
feel like they got forced into it. You know,
They
it doesn't.
definitely did.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it's a game they would ever want to make.
It's not the same company, and I won't hang it on them if down the road sometime they decide to split.
Yeah,
and hopefully that's
I hope we start seeing some, like you're saying, we see some moves from people getting away from the big no more oligarchy shit, let's separate this shit out.
Not have
'Cause
four
things
like the
get
same
watered
game.
down, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, definitely.
So Metro Exodus came out, and it's receiving a plethora of really positive reviews. It seems to be like a spectacular game. Like everybody like absolutely loves it. It's the completely opposite game of Anthem. It's the antithesis of Anthem. But you're also seeing a lot of like really good reviews on Steam. And Adam, this is like an article that you had posted in. But like some people are still pointing to the release being on Epic Games like as a terrible move, but they also are saying like that they love the game. I don't really have like a super overall point here. I feel like we've talked about this a lot of times. It seems like, I don't know, I haven't seen the sales numbers. I've been looking for the sales numbers, and I think that'll tell us like if the move to Epic Games was really such a bad idea or not. But like, I mean, it seems like everybody loves the game anyway, so like, was it really that bad of an idea?
Yeah, it's. I'm just looking at the reviews right now, and it seems really odd to me that Steam has a page for this game. I didn't really understand that at first when I was reading these articles.
They had the pre-sale of the game on Steam at first, and then it moved over. I think they just kept the page intact, and Steam had like I think reimbursed everybody like for those purchases at some point.
And I want to say that probably Steam has something to do with the first two reviews being, I truly hope the Epic Game Store fails, and then the second one being, it's like a character, how they make pictures with the letters. It's two middle fingers with the Epic Store.
Yeah, right.
Fingers.
Go ahead.
How could you possibly? What the hell did the Epic Store ever do to you? You hate them that much?
Yeah, it's kind of a weird. It is kind of weird. It is kind of weird. I agree.
There's the Steam boys, man. There's people who are obsessed with Steam. They live in that fucking thing, man. This isn't really related to. This is broadly something I want to say real quick. This is good. I'm happy that this game is getting positive reviews, and I'm happy that the developers are using the pathway that they're using, which is these are releases with not a lot of. I don't think any DLC. I'm not positive, but I don't think. Or Last Light might have had some DLC, but these were released full game. What we're talking about. What we want: full games with a great story.
Yep.
And people really enjoy them, and like I really like to see positive feedback from people about developers who are providing these kind of games that are completed, story rich, and keeping up in all of their in all other areas with graphics and everything else. So I'm excited. I love this, and I will eventually play this. because I've played 2033, but I haven't played Last Light, which I need to beat, and then I will be beating this.
Yeah, it's nice to see. I at first thought that maybe it wouldn't have much success just from going to Epic. It seemed like everybody like in the community was like gonna like try to not play it or something just because of that fact. I'm glad to see that the developer was supported and that like people are like actually still trying the game out because it's so good.
Yeah.
But yeah, all right, that's it for me.